Welcome everyone to my talk on how to bring accessibility into your teams. Thank you BBC Meetups for having me today do this talk for the meetup. So something to say around accessibility is that the reason I'm doing this talk is because I feel like a lot of the times accessibility is not seen at the very start of a project. It's something that is added later on in the project, and something that I kept thinking quite a lot was around why can't we bring this in sooner so that we can have accessibility baked in whatever we developed as software. So that's why it motivated me to do this talk, and I hope you enjoy the session today. So a little bit about myself. I've been testing for over 8 years now. I have studied computer science. I am an active blogger, speaker, host, as well as a trainer at the Coders Guild. I am currently working at EasyJet as a testing and quality assurance lead. So a table of contents today is part one will be more around gaining some background knowledge on accessibility and how we can get into accessibility. Why is accessibility important and its benefits? Part two would be how to bring accessibility into the team, coach your teams to it. And the last part would be when to do accessibility and tips. So you may be seeing a lot of A11Y. That's basically between the word accessibility, between A and Y, there are 11 characters. That's why it's shortened into accessibility as ally, for example. So the power of the web is in its universality. Access by everyone, regardless of disability, is an essential aspect by Tim Berners-Lee. This is a quote that really gives me more motivation to give this talk about, because we have to be socially aware. We have to make sure that we are catering our applications to everyone possible. Okay, so part one. So did you know these were the figures around the world where people with disabilities are actually working. So the numbers are not small, they're quite big, but it makes us think actually, what are we doing for them? Are we making our applications, our apps, our web apps as well? Are we making them accessible for them or not? So I just found it fascinating, and I thought it would be really good to share some sort of stats here. Of course, colorblindness in the UK, it affects 1 in 12 men and 1 in 200 women worldwide. As you can see, 8.4 million people of working age between 16 and 64 are reported that they were disabled in October to December 2020. So this is a very recent statistic, which is 20% of the working age population, which is a big percentage. So 52.3% of disabled people were in employment, down from 54.1% a year previously, so 2019. And the employment rate of people who are not disabled was 81.1%, down from 82.2%. Some of the companies who have done it right is the NHS websites, Tesco and Legal & General, for example. These were the top ones that I thought I'll just add. There's more, of course, who have done it right and are continuing to bring it into their teams. So because of all the statistics and all of the information just mentioned, it brings me to the question of, are we making it accessible for them? For individuals without a disability, technology makes things easier. For individuals with a disability, technology makes things possible. So right now I'm wearing contact lenses, but I tend to wear glasses. So for me, that is my assistive technology. If I were not wearing my glasses, I would see the screen very blurry. So things like this were making me think and motivating me more to go and give this talk out there. So how did I come across accessibility as a tester? So a little bit of background. I was working for a bank, and we were working on the open banking system, and we went live without thinking around accessibility. So at that point, one of the senior managers in testing came in really frustrated as to why have we gone live without accessibility. And at that point, I was thinking, what even is accessibility? I've never heard of that. So I was very confused. I then started thinking about accessibility and making sure that I understand what accessibility is. I paired up with the developers. We worked on screen recorders and a couple of other tools, which would potentially help me see how accessible we are. Why did I think of this topic? Because in previous experiences, I have come across, when speaking to a manager around accessibility, I've been told we are a B2B product, so we should not worry. If we were B2C, then only we should worry. So that actually put an exclamation mark in my head. And I was thinking, right, but if there was someone who is disabled within our team, whether that's color blindness, whether that's temporarily they cannot use their right arm, for example, it may have been fractured. What are we doing for people like that? Is our application accessible to them? So that's what actually made me think more and motivate me more for this talk. So a question to all of you, actually, so you can start thinking of it. So are you aware of accessibility? And some useful resources and advocates that I tend to follow that I would suggest for all of you to follow is A.D. Stokes, Marie Drake, Lisandra Armas Aguila, and Suman Bala. So they're all on Twitter and LinkedIn. They do post a lot around accessibility, and it's all really useful information that we can start adopting. So why is accessibility important? So if we think from the community point of view, it builds your relationships with the community. You are actually reaching out to a wider community. It is smart business-wise because why are we reaching to a smaller number when we could reach to more people? We are being socially aware as well in that case. It drives innovation because you will notice that if you are accessible as a product, people would want to stick to that product more, and that brand reputation would increase as well. So again, it helps enhance your brand. In terms of market research, again, you're extending your market research. You're researching a little bit more than what we would do normally. And legalities, you're minimizing legal risks. So something I like to say always is make sure you catch your legalities before the legalities catch you. So something to bear in mind as well. The benefits around accessibility, quite a few. So you reach a wider audience, you are socially aware. It increases usability. You can get feedback on someone who may be partially disabled. How are they feeling using your application? So you don't just get usability feedback from people who can comfortably use your application, but what about people who may have color blindness? You might get a better feedback from them as well in terms of your product. It satisfies current and future legal requirements and ethics, and improves maintainability and efficiency. So a little video here.
There's that bucket in that room there. There is more.
So as you can see here, I'm actually a little bit trapped there. So this was some construction going on at my new place, and there is a door handle at the entrance of the bedroom, but there is no door handle to get out. So this is just a trap in a bedroom, and luckily I was wearing gloves and there was a little bit of space when I shut the door to kind of get out. But can you imagine all the traps that people could get stuck on applications with? Can you imagine people not being able to complete their end-to-end journeys? Or if I am working, for example, for a EasyJet, can you imagine people not being able to book a ticket? It does impact a lot of things. It does actually drive customers away from your product as well at some point. So it is really important on making sure that we are not getting trapped. And if we are getting trapped, there's a way out as well. Part 2, How did I bring accessibility to the team? So my steps were basically to start getting more aware, first of all, and start chatting about accessibility to my team or just to few members to understand if they are aware of this, if they've used any tools, and how could I basically pair with them and help them with that. I created some informative slides and I started showing it to the delivery manager and understand what their take is on this sort of area, on this non-functional testing. In terms of communication, I worked on myself on how I want to convey this as well, because sometimes what I've understood is something that I might want to convey, I very clearly understand it, but my audience might think of it differently, or it may sound a bit miscommunicated as well. So I just made sure that I'm trying to use the right language. I'm trying to use the right sort of details when conveying around accessibility and showing the right sort of statistics or information that I've gathered. Because one thing that we always feel is that whatever we are trying to say, everyone understands it, but there are people who may not understand it. So you have to also think around that. In terms of teams, speak to individuals and teams, of course, and see if anyone's aware of it. If they know any other team who's doing this, how could you bring it into your current team, for example? How, if you can't bring the entire process another team's using, could you maybe even start with 10% of it? Or how could you strategize, how could you standardize standards that other teams are using so that there's only one particular way of working? In terms of research, suggest options as well. So if you are trying to look into color contrasts, you can speak to the UX designers and not just tell them that this color is not AA standards, it's single A, we should look into AA standards. Maybe you can suggest a color option to them, that this is the nearest color to the color palette we're using, and this one is a AA standards, but it's not the color that the website's using right now. So could we potentially change it to something that's more accessible? In terms of reports, there is no perfect way of reporting. I would suggest that if you do like to use PowerPoint slides, or if you do like to use documents, maybe just start with some screenshots and maybe just start explaining what areas you're trying to test for accessibility and why, and what are the findings, the results. And if you do find some sort of issues that you face throughout your testing with the tools, maybe you can add some solutions or suggestions, as I mentioned, to it too, so that when you are conveying this to the UX designers and the wider development team, you can actually show them that you've not just done research, but you've also suggested some sort of solutions to it too. So there is no right way of report. It's all about gaining experience and learning through it and trying to convey the right thing. Team coaching. So what do I do? So basically, I deliver some information. I become a subject matter expert or an advocate for accessibility. So you are kind of sharing that information there. How do I convince is the big one. By explaining accessibility and making sure I deliver the vital details. And again, sometimes what we think that we are saying may not be the thing that people understand. So as I said earlier, work on your communication there as well. So it's very difficult sometimes to convince. Some teams might say that we have something, we do not want to think further on this, or we might not want to enhance our strategy or definition of done. But then if you see something that's lacking, you should basically tell them to enhance it and why. So that's how you're going to convince them. How to back my point, another important one. So you would do back your point with the findings you've done, with some sort of suggestions that you're making as well, so that they can see that you've done a proper research into the whole application. How do I know they understand? So my audience. So what information they understand or what they find as blockers. So this is the place where you have a healthy discussion and you open up for questions and ask your team members of what they think about these findings that you've had, could they potentially start dividing them into high, low, and medium priorities and add them onto the backlog? Or do you want to research further? If they are confused, then how can you help them be less confused? And all sorts of things around that area. Part 3, when or how to do accessibility testing. When? So I would suggest the sooner the better. Of course, when you are trying to do a POC, it is very early stages, so you may not want to think about that then, but if you do, that's a bonus. But otherwise, when you have a project going end to end, and it's not a POC, it's a proper project, it's past its pilot stage, maybe you should think around the design and planning session. That's where it's a good phase to start, where you can question what are we thinking when it comes to accessibility, especially when it's a front-end product. Have we got something in place? Can we bring something in place? These are the sort of questions to ask at that stage. Of course, when you get requirements from the clients or internally, if you're working on an internal project, you can check the requirements, and if they're front-end facing, again, you ask the questions during the requirements phase as well. You can ask your clients or the internal teams on how accessible are we? Do we need to look into something extra, or things are taken care of? And if so, if there's any sort of report or strategy that they have in place, to just have a look at that and make sure we can tick accessibility off. The good old budget. So this has been something that has been spoken a lot throughout my career, the budget. So question was, I was stopped from doing accessibility in previous experiences because there was no budget. But then I had a question to the team, would you rather risk it then? And they were like, no. But then I told them we have free tools available. We don't have to pay a single penny. And that's where they started getting a little confused. But it's okay. It's okay, because even I was at that point once in my life, and learning around free plugin tools, learning around free screen reader tools that we have on Windows machines and MacBooks. There are free tools everywhere. And it's just around standardizing what tools we want to use, because there's a lot of tools out there. And then you also want to reach out to more people. You want to be socially aware. You want to kind of make sure that more people can use your application, more people can feedback for your application. And at the end of the day, it is important to be accessible, to be an application that a wider majority can use. So these are some things to think about. Something that you might be thinking again, what to include in my accessibility report. Again, as I said earlier, there is no right or wrong way of doing a report. However, if you do want to gain some sort of ideas on what to have in your report, so these would be the following suggestions that I'd like to make. The areas that you have tested and why, with some screenshots or videos, if you like. The results, what your checks produced. So if you are using some sort of applications such as Axe, Lighthouse, what are they actually showing? And if you can potentially deep dive into them, sorry. And some sort of suggestions. If possible at all, and you have that knowledge, you should try and give some sort of suggestions and see if they can be approved by the team. Sometimes when we come with help already for the team, it's appreciated. However, sometimes you have to follow the rule book as well, that if there is a certain color that has been selected and it's for the branding purpose, they will keep that sort of color. So sometimes your suggestions will work, sometimes your suggestions will be a bit of a 50-50 chance, which is still fine. But at least we went a bit above and beyond and did our research. The results at the end of this would be that you become an advocate. You are a subject matter expert in this area. You're spreading more eminence around accessibility. Other teams might want to learn from you. Other teams might invite you to come and give talks in their teams to see how they can bring accessibility, and wider teams. You feel accomplished as well because team members start approaching you. I remember that UX designers were bringing their designs first towards the testing team. So I was the one who was actually checking for any accessibility checks and then sending it back saying, this is good, or we could maybe slightly change something, and then only this would get developed by the front-end developer. And also you feel good because you're kept in loop of what's happening in terms of designs, what's happening in terms of accessibility, and what sort of checks are being done beforehand. So I made a little bit of a follow my steps slide here. You don't have to follow all of them 100%, but I just thought it might be useful. So first of all, research is utmost important. What is accessibility and how you could benefit from it in your teams? You test your application, have some sort of details to showcase why accessibility is important and what sort of findings you have after testing it. Prepare an informative session where you discuss what you tested and the results that came out of it. And finally, step 4, have accessibility as part of your testing approach. And then you're unified. So I just thought this would be a handy tip for you to take away. Some quick checks and tips that you can take with you today as well. I tend to use the following plugins. Arc Toolkit, which I really like because it gives you the journey on a website. It gives you little numbers everywhere, and then you can follow it to see if this is actually the right journey on the page, or the numbers are in all different places, and you can tell straight away that the journey is not the right way to use this application. Axe is really useful. You can also automate Axe these days. Wave is again another useful kind of tool to give you details around contrast, ARIA labeling, image issues, all sorts of issues on that. Lighthouse is a quick soft check on accessibility. It gives you a percentage of how accessible is your application. Removing styling. So a small percentage of people don't like images on their website. So if we were to remove images today, would we be able to still do what we want to do on those websites or applications? So that's another quick check. Tabbing is another one that is useful to do. Do not use a mouse, just tab through. Screen readers, again, super useful. You can try and use throttling. Check if you are using fast 3G or 4G, 5G, how does your application work? If you are offline, does it give you a reasonable detail or error message, or is it just giving you a basic message? So these are things to kind of help with accessibility as well. If someone has vision deficiencies, you can actually check for all the vision deficiencies on developer tools. So that's actually handy as well. And it changes the color of your application as you go through these vision deficiencies. And if you are looking at color contrast on developer tools again, you can actually get contrast ratios. You can see if it's AA standards or AAA or single A or across, because it is not accessible at all. So these are quick and free checks that you can add as part of your accessibility. So 4 principles of accessible content. So can I perceive it? Is it perceivable, the product that we are trying to build? Can I use it if I'm temporarily, as the image shows, if temporarily I've got a fracture in my arm or I'm hurt? So is it operable, whether it's temporary, disabled or permanently? Can I grasp it? Can I understand what's happening in this application? Can I access it? Is it robust enough? So these are the sort of things to kind of think when we are building a front-end application. So a little video again. So here I'm trying to make a coffee, what do you call it? A mug muffin or a cup muffin. and I thought I'll make a blueberry one and see how does that taste. However, I did not add the blueberries before. If I would have added those before, it would have tasted nice and the blueberries would have been perfectly baked in. But I have them on top and it doesn't feel the same. So this is a little analogy of accessibility. If we have it baked in, it will be definitely worthwhile. It will definitely reach more people, which is what we want. And no legalities will be chasing. So yeah. Oops. So yeah, a little bit of summary. So make sure you understand accessibility. If you are fairly new to it, there's a lot of content out there to read, watch, and learn from. Of course, explore some sort of tools, some plugins. It's great to do some exploratory testing with tools as well. How to introduce this to your respective teams by basically researching, presenting, coaching your team into it. What can you do? So you can, of course, do all your research, present it, make sure that it's understood by your team, and try and see if you can bring it as part of your testing strategy. And some useful tips and tools which I shared with you in terms of tools, in terms of giving suggestions as well when you are doing your research. And yeah. So thank you very much. Thank you very, very much, BBC, for allowing me to present this presentation.